but at least as a subject for consideration, it's really good. Yeah. And, so therefore, how's this? In Srimad Bhagavatam, what are we doing? Are we moving forward? Yes, please move forward. Come closer, close association. Do not worry, I will not bite you. I am vegetarian. I guess we're expecting an influx. So, but in the 10th canto, there's a description there that the Supreme Lord, along with having many forms, he's got many forms. He has many qualities. Don't play around with that. He has many qualities, but, listen to this, try and digest this. He, for every living entity, and zillions and however many, actually an innumerable number, there is a particular quality that he only exhibits to each devotee. So this is Anukul Krishna Prabhu here. Yes, Hare Krishna. There's one quality of Krishna's, Krishna only reveals to him. But what's your name?
Chaitanya.
Oh, you're Chaitanya. I've been looking for you. But there's one other quality, different one, which he only reveals to Chaitanya, and not to Anukul, or to me, or to any of you, or just anyone at all. How's that? We're getting into realms of sort of concepts of reality that way beyond our capacity to really absorb and deal with, because our minds, our brains are only what, like this, by that, by something like that. So how much are you going to absorb in that? Certainly not the totality of existence. So anyway, just by way of introduction, these are just interesting concepts, and we cannot grasp them like 2 + 2 = 4. You can get that and just get it, and there you go, you got it. But these you can't. But at least you can get a glimpse, an idea, and it's nice, it's interesting. But at a certain point, one just has to accept, okay, I can't get the whole thing, but at least as far as I can go, I'll get it, and that'll be nice, because it's nice as far as it goes. Are you with me, or have I lost you? You're with me? That's one at least, okay. Right. So therefore there are some points, and not just a few, but there's some points which are inconceivable for our conditioned brains or intelligences. And these some points, they're inconceivable for us. So when they come up, one shouldn't stress too much. I got to work it out somehow, when you can't. So don't stress about it. What Prabhupada said to do when you meet some point like that, like, what does 1 Koti Maha Oga number of people, when they're assembled together somewhere, what does it look like? I saw 1 million people once in Ireland years ago when the Pope came. One of the popes came to Ireland and I was there. And 1 million people, I can tell you, it's a lot of people. It's just really a lot of people. But 1 Koti Maha Oga, 1 followed by 64 zeros, that's really a lot more. And you just can't fit it in a space like this. So therefore Prabhupada said there are certain of these types of conceptions for which, rather than try and strain your brain, you should just say, Hare Krishna, and leave it at that. And just leave it at that. So in regards to Lord Balaram being the first expansion of Lord Krishna, and the closest to Krishna, the closer you get to a person, generally, the more you understand them. So there's an interesting little, I'm sure many of you have heard this before, but little conversation between Srila Prabhupada there, and a couple of his disciples years ago in India. These two disciples of Prabhupada, Madhu Devisa Swami, who's, a very senior man and sort of presenter of Krishna consciousness, and then one lady, Yamuna Devi Dasi, who was also a very senior lady, and among many other things, an incredibly expert cook. Just by smelling a preparation while it's being cooked, she could tell you what was in it, what spices were in it, how the spices were put in. I mean, some you put in at the beginning, some you put in after a while. She could tell you all those things. That's pretty cool, isn't it? So anyway, between the two of them were having a debate which ended up almost like an argument about, is there a difference? Are there any differences between Krishna and Balaram, the first expansion? And, generally we would understand that there's hardly differences. There's a difference in color, though, that Lord Krishna is blackish blue. He's not black, he's blackish blue. And the color of a new monsoon cloud. If you've ever seen a new monsoon cloud, when the monsoon first arises, it's this whole grand event. And those new monsoon clouds, they're blackish with like a blue tint. And they're effulgent, they glow. It's really amazing, extremely impressive and beautiful. That's Krishna, whereas Balaram is white. And when I say white, I'm looking out here, I see a handful of white people. Widows. like me. But we, with all due respect, we are not actually white. See, this is white here, his shirt. That's white. None of us are that color. We're sort of something else. So, but anyway, he is actually white. Actually white as such. And don't mind, maybe I shouldn't mention it, but it's in a sense the first manifestation of like racial considerations. But let's leave it at that, particularly in South Africa. So, right, okay, so there's Madhu Devisa Swami and Yamuna Devi Dasi. Both of them have been devotees for the same length of time, so they're both experienced and intelligent and Krishna conscious people. So, they were having this debate that what is the difference, or is there a difference between Krishna and Balaram? And Madhudavisa Swami, he said, there's no difference. There's a difference in color, like we just mentioned. But in terms, as persons, there's no difference. Just overlook the difference in color, which is a pretty good piece of advice. And just take the person for what they really are as people. So that's what Madhudavisa Swami said. But Yamuna Devi Dasi said, no, there's a difference, significant difference, at least one, is that Krishna is the only enjoyer of Radharani. She's the original, first, eternal consort of Lord Krishna. And she does not really interact with Balaram. He has a different consort, actually. Not that he doesn't have, but different. So she was saying that that's a difference. But Madhudavisa was no. So this other very senior, even more senior devotee, Tamal Krishna Goswami, appeared on the scene and saw that, that it's getting a little heated. So he took them to meet with Srila Prabhupada, the spiritual master, and sat them down there with Prabhupada. And he explained, Tamal Krishna Goswami explained, that, Srila Prabhupada, here we have Madhudavisa Swami, and he says there's no difference between Krishna and Balaram. There's a difference in color, but it doesn't matter. So there's no difference. Prabhupada said, you all know what Prabhupada said, don't you? You've heard this before. Prabhupada said, you're right. But then Tamal Krishna Goswami said, but Yamuna Devi Dasi says there is a difference because Krishna's the only enjoyer of Radharani. Srila Prabhupada said, she's right. Tamal Krishna Goswami said, but Srila Prabhupada, they cannot both be right. Tamal Krishna Goswami said, Srila Prabhupada said, you're right. And then I don't know if you got that. So Tamal Krishna Goswami said, but Prabhupada, how can we understand this? And Prabhupada said, you decide. In other words, Hare Krishna. Don't stress about it. Just chant Hare Krishna. Another time, similar situation. Yes, one devotee, there's a rule in one of the old rule books, which has 1,000 rules at least, what to do and what not to do. Hari Bhakti Vilas. And in there's a rule that on Dwadasi means the 12th day of the moon, either, coming up to full moon or going down to no moon. So on the 12th day, the Dwadasi, then you must not, and you cannot, you're not allowed to pick leaves off tulsi plants. We have on the side of the altar, right? Just a small shrub, kind of like that, bush. And we use the leaves in the process of worship on our major altars, worship of the deities. So, but anyway, in that particular book, which is highly authoritative and respected, and for hundreds and so years, it says on the Dwadasi you cannot pick tulsi. So, and that Hari Bhakti Vilas is written or compiled or written by Sanatan Goswami. Sandton Goswami, very great devotee and just at least a genius, to put it mildly. So he compiled it, he wrote it, and that's what he wrote. That you can't pick Tulsi on Dwadasi. So devotee, you know devotees. They're interesting people, inquisitive about so many things. So one devotee became inquisitive about this and said, Srila Prabhupada, why is it that Hari Bhakti Vilas says on Dwadasi you cannot pick Tulsi? Why is it? What's the reason? Srila Prabhupada's answer was, because Sandton Goswami said so. In other words, Hare Krishna. Don't worry about it too much. Or just don't worry about it. So anyway, I mean, this is the science even, you can say, the science of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the science of God. If any science is going to be big and, deep and even complicated and, not just accessible just like that to every Tom, Dick and Harry, it's the science of God. Because he is the biggest. And he's the source of all the other sciences and other subject matters, many of which are very complicated. And not just for the sake of complication, but actually there really is so much information involved. Yeah, so the science of God is not a small thing. And, at least a point in principle about it is that we should not try to just do it ourselves. DIY, God consciousness. Don't waste your time. Just like DIY brain surgery. Don't just try and do it yourself. Don't do that. You need to be educated. You can get it, but you need to be educated by someone who's capable of giving the education. Yeah, and even in the science of God, because like I said, it reaches a point, we can, different individuals, depending on their states of consciousness, can understand the science of God to different degrees, in different ways, different aspects, and so on like that. But you reach a point, and all you can do is say, Hare Krishna. At least that's all you should do. Otherwise you'll get, I don't know about a migraine, but your brain just won't be able to deal with it, and it'll be too much. And so for some people it can be very frustrating. And some people can even become suicidal if they cannot understand these things as much as they feel they need to. So this is a very important part of the whole science of God. Just Krishna and how he expands, but Krishna and his first expansion, who is Lord Balaram. And like we said, basically there's no difference. There's just a difference in color, but it doesn't make a difference in terms of the person. Yeah, necessarily. So Lord Balaram, though, it's not like he's just a carbon copy or, you press in Microsoft Word or something, you just copy and paste. So you just paste Krishna into another form and you just got two of them. He's an individual. He's an individual. And the very interesting, it's a just extremely interesting point about Lord Balaram is when we look at his mood, his state of mind, like his self-conception, how he sees himself, and just how he is, how he thinks and feels. Srila Jiva Goswami, who was one of the nephews of Sanatan Goswami, we just mentioned in regard to Hari Bhakti Vilas. Jiva Goswami, he makes this sort of, what would you call it, like a type of conversation between himself, a person, a questioner, and Krishna, and then the same questioner and Balaram. This person goes up to Krishna and says, "Who is God?" And Krishna, with his pointing finger, says, "Me." Not me, but Krishna says, "Me." Yeah, that's Krishna's self-conception. His idea of himself is, he is God, which is a fact. He's the original form of the Supreme Lord. Now, Balaram, his first expansion, if you go up to Balaram and you ask Balaram, well, who are you? He's God, but I thought you were too, but who are you? And Balaram will say, I'm a devotee of Krishna. That's what I am. I'm a servant of Krishna. He's the first expansion. He has absolutely, literally, absolutely every right to say, I'm also God. All right, there's two of us. Just think about that one. He has every right. But no, if you ask him, who are you? He'll answer, I'm a servant of Krishna. I'm a devotee of Krishna. That's who I am. Yeah, and we see in his activities that that's how he lives. That's what he does. He just does service to Krishna. Yes. And there I'm going to just, from some notes I have, give you a few examples of how Lord Balaram serves Krishna. Listen to this. That as a servant, Lord Balaram appears as Krishna's bed. Well, no, we don't have deities here, but like if you go to Lenasia where we have deities, the deities, the small deities, am I right? They have beds. They're small. And the beds, they're small, but they actually get laid down in bed every night and put to sleep with mantra, and then woken up with mantra early in the morning, and then sort of stood up again on the altar and dressed and everything the next day. So next time you go there, devotees, pujaris, are you a pujari? Next time you go there and you put them into the bed, just remember that this bed is a form of Balaram. It's a form of Balaram. And he's taken this form as a service. And it's not just that form of the Lord in our temple in Malaysia. It's in every temple, and there's probably millions, at least there's many thousands of temples with deities where they lay Krishna down in a bed at night. So, think about that. Then, Lord Balaram is Krishna's fan. We'll be having an arati shortly, and picture at least, or deity in the shape of a picture, will be fanned. And whoever's fanning it may be me, but anyway, whoever does it, just remember, this is a form of Balaram for serving the Lord. Then he is Krishna's house. He is Krishna's house, place of residence. He is Krishna's umbrella. He is, would you believe, devotees and friends, he is Krishna's clothes. Any clothes. Like you look at that picture, the big picture, right? You see the 5 deities there from Mayapur in India. They have clothes on. Those clothes are forms of Balaram. Yeah. And all clothes of all forms of the Lord. They are forms of Balaram. Then all of the Lord's ornaments. If you look at least closely enough at that bigger picture, you'll see the deities have like bangles and different things like that. They're all forms of Balaram. Krishna's sitting place is a form of Balaram. What else? So here's a couple more. His sandals, at least in Lanesia where they're, like quite major deities, they have sandals. They're all forms of Balaram. His pillow, yeah. Then, what else? Yes, whenever Krishna fights, sometimes he fights. I mean, we sometimes fight a bit, don't we? Maybe not physically, but, verbally, or even if not verbally, maybe we think about it, what's this person doing? Get aggressive mentally. So, but Balaram becomes Krishna's weapons. He becomes Krishna's brother. He becomes Krishna's friend. He expands in different forms, in different stages of the creation. Mahavishnu, who is overseeing the entire material realm, is a form of Balaram. Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, who is the Lord managing each universe, is a form of Mahavishnu, who's a form of Balaram. Kshirodakshaya Vishnu, who is within our hearts, that form of the Lord, the Supreme Lord, who is within our hearts and, dealing with us in different ways. He's a form of Balaram. And he's not only within our hearts. Talk about being on top of things. He is within every atom. Talk about, management, being on top of controlling a situation. He's within every atom. And he incarnates or expands, Balaram expands into the different types of rasas or relationships. They're basically 5 types of in a general sense, relationships that one may have with Krishna. There's a neutral relationship, and there, being his bed, his fan, his shoes, etc. They're all like neutral relationship. Then he becomes the brother. That's a friendly relationship. Then he even assumes a female form in the conjugal rasa, a Nanga Manjari, who is the sister, the little sister of Srimati Radharani, but she's a form of Balaram. So therefore, Jiva Goswami makes a very interesting point, an important point, that there is practically nothing which Lord Balaram does not do for Krishna as a servant. He practically does everything that it's possible to do for another person, but he does for Krishna. How's that? Anyway, don't put it in your pipe and smoke it, but think about it, okay? Just think about it and pray to the Lord. Help me to, appreciate. Not like get it, but just appreciate. And another, I'll just mention one more of those specific little points. You may have seen, I'm sure many of you have seen a picture of baby Krishna. Baby Krishna is lying on it's said to be a banyan leaf, but anyway, it's quite a big leaf, which is big enough for a little baby to lie on and float on water. Did you see that picture before? You didn't. You must look more carefully. It's there to be seen. Yeah, so there's this painting, or a copy of it, which is very famous. It's very famous, and so many people, at least from Hindu backgrounds, they have seen the picture before. Am I right?
Yes.
I'm sure so many of you have. Right. So there's Krishna lying on his back on this leaf, which is floating around on some water. And Krishna, while he's lying there, he is sucking his big toe. And one devotee asked Krishna, "Why are you sucking your big toe?" And Krishna said, "Because I've heard so many of my devotees say that my lotus feet are very sweet. And I wanted to find out for myself. And I can say, my conclusion is, my feet are very sweet." And he floated away on that leaf, floated away, continuing to suck on his big toe. So, okay, that's just interesting in and of itself. But belief is a form of Balaram. That leaf is a form of Balaram. So therefore it's said. And particularly someone like Jiva Goswami, who really examines so many points in detail, he says that there is practically nothing which Balaram does not do for Krishna, as a service to Krishna. Therefore for us, because, what are we meant to be? Or not just meant to be, but what are we? What are we as beings, as living entities? We are all eternal servants of the Supreme Lord, every single one of us. There's, I don't know if it's Dante's Inferno or what it is, but there's a saying in one of these sort of classical European old dramas that some sort of real tough guy says, "Better to be king in hell than a servant in heaven." And you know what? He missed the point, I tell you what. You could barely miss the point more than he missed it. Yeah. And even some devotees feel better to be I'm prepared to be a servant in hell. I'm prepared to be a servant of hell. In hell, if Krishna wants that of me, I'll do whatever he wants. And even if I'm in some hellish place, I'll try and educate people and help people, particularly to understand that they're servants of the Lord. Yeah. Yes. Right, and that's why, Lord Shiva, I know many of you will be somewhat familiar with Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva, he, around his neck, he has a cobra, and near the cobra he has a few scorpions, and he covers his body with the ashes of cremated human bodies. In other words, he's kind of pretty extreme. He's really pretty extreme. And would you believe, you're sitting down, I know you should sit down and fasten your seatbelt. Anyway, would you believe, devotees, he smokes ganja, or daka, as they say. Yeah, but would you believe it has no effect? It just has no effect on him at all. And, there are, just to diverge slightly, there are certain, not all, but certain followers and worshippers of Lord Shiva who use a logic that, well, he smokes ganja, so therefore I'm following him. I must do it. If I'm going to be like a real follower, I should smoke ganja. Lord Shiva, though, he drank an ocean of poison. Yeah. Just as he was drinking, he cupped his hands and he was drinking, and somehow the poison was coming out into his hands and he was drinking. And some little splashes went out. The little splashes were drunk by the original generation of snakes. And just some drops, not the ocean, but just some drops was sufficient that now, even today, the descendants of those snakes, some of them like, cobras, mambas, some of them are extremely, extremely poisonous. I happened to see a few months ago, a video of a lioness which had been bitten by a black mamba and was in the process of, coming to the point of dying. And wow, that lioness was just going berserk, completely berserk, like, total craziness, out of control by the power of that poison. So it was just a few drops that came out. And the original generations of snakes, they weren't poisonous till then, but they drank those few drops and became extremely poisonous, and they're passing it on till today. Anyway, so, yes, so Lord Balaram, he's in that mood of being a servant, and for us, we are by nature servants. Lord Chaitanya, there's one famous verse of his, or it's two verses actually. Jivera Swarup Hoya Krishnera Nitya Das, which is Bengali. If anyone here speak Bengali? Maybe not. But, in Bengali, when era is added as a suffix, era means of. It's the genitive form. They don't use a preposition like we do in English. But yeah, so Jivera means of the living entity. Jivera Swarup, the eternal nature of the living entity, not just the humans, but just the living entities. Jivera Swarup Hoya means is. Krishnera, of Krishna, Nityadas. is to be the eternal servant of Krishna. That's the most fundamental aspect of the nature of every living entity. Eternally, to be the eternal servant of Krishna, the original Supreme Lord. So, the example of Lord Balaram then is very relevant for us. His mood is he's a servant, and basically he sort of adopted it himself. Because, in another sense, he's God, and he's God. But he decided, I'm going to be a servant of Krishna. And that's what he does. But we are by nature servants of the Lord. So we can learn from his example as a servant. He is willing to do anything, whether it's pleasant or unpleasant, or whatever it is, doesn't matter. Whether it's good for him or bad, even bad for him, if it's a service for Lord Krishna, he'll happily do it. He won't just say, oh, well, okay, guess I've got to do it. But he'll happily do anything for Krishna. Even adopt such a, unusual position to be his shoes or his bed, his pillow, all these things. He's ready. Not just ready, he's happy. He's enthusiastic to be these things, to do these services. So therefore we can really learn from Lord Balaram. And, interesting little point. Oh, we should finish, shouldn't we?
It's okay.
1 minute. Dough. Punch. Interesting little point. Krishna, like we mentioned, Jiva Goswami says, sort of hypothetically asks Krishna, who are you? Are you, oh no, who is God? And Krishna, what does Krishna say? What does he say?
I am.
Yeah. Well, he says, me. It's like very assertive. Me. Doesn't just say, oh, it's me. Yeah. So Krishna, anyway, when Krishna, it's described in Chaitanya Charitamrita, when Lord Krishna, just immediately after Lord Krishna had been here, about 5,000 years ago, and then he returned to the kingdom of God, which is his home. When he went back home, he was thinking that how was it? It was wonderful. How wonderful it was when I was down in this material universe, and there were so many devotees who were serving me in different ways, just so many. Just so much service I was getting in such moods of love and affection. And he started thinking about some of the particular examples of certain devotees who had served him in certain ways. And he remembered one. And this devotee did whatever it was. Maybe they made a garland for me. And wow, I got so much pleasure from having the garland, such a beautiful garland. I got so much pleasure from that. But then Krishna thought, or the idea just came to him, that the devotee who made the garland got more pleasure from making the garland for me than I got, even though I got lots of pleasure from wearing the garland. But that devotee got much more pleasure than me from making it than I got from wearing it, even though I got lots of pleasure. So then he started thinking of different of the devotees and, more advanced and greater, more higher levels of devotees and the different services that they did. And one devotee did something, service, and got 10 times the pleasure from doing the service than Krishna got from receiving the service, even though he got so much pleasure from it, just incredible amount of pleasure. And someone else thought of, Krishna thought of someone else got 20 times. That's really a lot. More pleasure. And someone else got 100 times. And 1,000 times. And 100,000 times is just, again, it's just inconceivable completely. And then he thought of Srimati Radharani. And Lord Krishna thought about her. And, he's got such a brain, he can comprehend these things. She got 10 million times more pleasure than me from serving me, than I got from being served by her, even though I got so much pleasures, just, beyond overwhelming. And then you know what happened to Krishna? You know what happened? Krishna thought, right, that's it. I've had it, being God. I want to be a devotee. I want to be a servant. So then he manifested the form, because this is now a mood. He manifested the appropriate form, which is Lord Chaitanya. Yes, and he appeared as Lord Chaitanya, who is the Lord. He is the Lord. He's not another person, but he's in the mood of a devotee. And how come he's in the mood? Is it just sort of, sometimes people get hyped up into moods? When I was young, long time ago, I read a book by Dale Carnegie called How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's a confession. I read the book. I did. Did any of you? It's sort of like a classic self-help type of book. So in there, I read the whole thing. And I remember particularly one place where he says, if you are not so confident about yourself, or even like a little introverted, shy, that sort of person, you can't just get up in front of people and just, address them. Then he said, what you should do is every day, I think for 20 minutes, anyway, you can look it up and check if you want. Every day, sit in front of the mirror and just look at yourself and say to yourself, you're great. You're wonderful. You are just a fantastic person. And, get into it. And he says, if you do this like, whatever it is, 20 minutes a day or something, then you'll get over your shyness and all of that. And you'll become, one of these strong, like a Donald Trump. Anyway, I shouldn't say that. Don't worry about that. Delete that. But you'll become a confident person who can just deal basically with anything. Yeah. Which unfortunately is not really correct. Doesn't really work. Because if you've got that sort of karma, you've got that sort of psychological mechanism which is really prone to some kind of belittling yourself. Old habits are hard to break. They're really hard to break. Yeah, so, like Alcoholics Anonymous, the success rate in the long run is, 10% or something like that. Because old habits are really hard to break. So in other words, I don't really recommend you do that. If you are like that to some degree, and at least to some degree, so many people are like that, then we recommend chant Hare Krishna. And it will take you deeper into yourself. And you'll be able to deal with yourself. You know, before you can deal with others, you've got to be able to deal with yourself. And you'll be able to deal with yourself better and handle yourself, without getting caught out by situations. So anyway, so Lord Krishna decided like that I will become a devotee. Because why? Because he was thinking about that they were happier than him, and even much happier, and much, much happier by serving him. So that's where the real nectar is. The real nectar is not in being, the boss, the big person who orders people around. Sit quietly. All right. Don't move. Yeah. Stop that. Don't do that. Not being the big person who orders people around. That's not where the nectar is. The nectar is in being a servant. And therefore Lord Chaitanya himself said, when asked, who are you? He said, Gopi Bhartu Padakamalayo Dasa Das Anudas. Who am I? I am the servant of the servant of the servant of Krishna, who is Gopi, of the lotus feet of Krishna, who is Gopi Bhartu, the Lord of the Gopis. An interesting little grammatical point. Gopi Bhartu Padakamalayor, Das, Adas, Anu, Das. Anu could mean like following the servants and following. Anu also is the Sanskrit term and Bengali term for atom. The most minute particle of existence. So I'm servant of the servant, and I'm just the little sub-microscopic servant of the servants of Krishna. And Prabhupada himself said, the more we can say, Das, Adas, 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 more we can say, and not just say, but feel, that we're servants of the servants. That means our position is better for us. Yeah, best position. Yeah, so there you go. So that's Lord Balaram. And we'll stop here, right? We'll stop here. But we'll continue tomorrow.
Tomorrow morning at 7:30.
Tomorrow at 7:30. So, tomorrow is the actual appearance day of Lord Balaram. And you should all, or even you must all, take the day off work. Okay? Just tell them you're sick. No, means, but what you mean is, I'm sick of working. You're not lying. And just come and take part. And I tell you, you'll feel better at the end of the day than if you had gone to work. All right. Hare Krishna. Hare Rama. Hare Rama. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.